I think his water is more interesting than his knife, she said. But steel is dramatic. It steals attention. You moved in the blackout. I placed my hands flat on the table and closed my eyes, she said. I teach patients to do the same. You never use the servant corridors? I prefer hallways with light, she said, which was not quite no. Why did he leave you his journals? Rowan asked. Because he wanted me to be the one to decide whether he was ill, she said. Or simply cruel. And which is it? I haven't read yet, she said. Ask me when I have. He let her go. Lydia. She perched on the chair like a bird on a wire, alert, ready to fly or peck. You inherit the collection, Rowan said. That's wealth, power, and enemies. Also storage fees and lawsuits, she said. I suspect Victor's generosity had teeth. You drew the guests, he said. In your room. I draw to think, she said, mimicking Evelyn's earlier cadence and smirking at herself for it. You smelled smoke in the blackout. Yes. Old money always smells a little like fire, she said dryly. Fresh cigar too, Graham's. You felt someone brush your shoulder. Yes, a small person or a quick one. Shoulder height to me. Anders is taller. Clara wears presents like a coat. You feel her coming. Evelyn moves like quiet. Miles stumbles. Graham telegraphs. This was none of them. Or all of them. The hidden room, Rowan said. You've used service corridors before? Lydia cocked her head. Of course. Galleries are full of doors that aren't for the public. You went down there tonight? She considered lying and decided against it. I did before dinner. I like seeing the skeleton of a house before the performance. I didn't touch his canvases. You saw the studio knife peg missing? I saw a lot of missing, she said. In his work. In all of us. Why did he give you the collection? Rowan asked. Because I told him the truth in print when everyone else kissed his ring, she said. He loved and hated me for it. Would you kill him to get it? I would write an essay that would end his career, she said softly. I don't need to kill anyone. Critics let readers do it for them. He let her go. Miles. He arrived angry and sat angry, as if the chair had done him wrong. You pawned your watch, Rowan said, placing the ticket on the table. I needed cash. You're cut off in the new will. I noticed. You stood in the blackout. I said that. You didn't go to the kitchen, gallery fuse box. No. Rowan let the silence widen until Miles couldn't stand it. I didn't kill him for money, he snapped. Everyone thinks I'm a screw-up who wants the easy way. You know what the easy way is? Being his son when he still liked me. You threatened him? Rowan asked gently. Miles' mouth trembled. I begged. He laughed. He liked me poor. You walked the service corridor? Miles looked away. I hate those halls. They smell like secrets. Where were you when the lights went out? Here, Miles said, watching a man I love pretend I'd never existed. Rowan believed 1/3 of that and kept the other 2/3 for later. Anders. The groundskeeper sat with his cap crushed in his hands. You have a trust, Rowan said. In the new will. I don't deserve it, Anders said. That's not how wills work. I don't want it, he said, which is also not how wills work. You know the house, Rowan said. Who could have moved in it without you hearing? Anders swallowed. Clara walks like she owns the floor. Miles stumbles. Tate taps his heels. Miss Voss is quick. Dr. Cross hardly sounds at all. And Victor? He laughed when he was alone, Anders said again, shame in it because he had heard and not understood. He talked to the pictures. He told them to behave. Did he go to the hidden room tonight? He went after lunch, Anders said. Came up with rag on his hand. Said turpentine made him feel clean. Where's your toolbox, Anders? Foyer, he said. By the door. Is anything missing from it? Anders looked stricken. The wire brush, he said. The small one. For cleaning hinges. Rowan nodded as if a stone had fit a hole. You didn't turn off camera 2, Rowan said. No? Who could have? Any of them, if they knew where the fuse was, he said. Mr. Harland kept the panel unlocked because he thought locks were vulgar. Rowan almost smiled. He loved doors, he said. He hated what they kept out. He let Anders go and sat alone in the dining room with the 2 wheels between his hands, the storm's steady breath on the glass, the house's offbeat clock ticking like a lie practicing. He laid out the evening like cards. Knife, taken long before dinner. The bone-handled fox absent from the foyer sunburst, a studio pegged outline missing below. Blackout, 8:34 to 8:35 by generator log, clocks tampered to muddle alibis, fuse puller off its dust print. Water versus wine, Victor's burgundy untouched, water glass marked, Evelyn's eye on it first. Hidden room, fresh turpentine, studio knife, scraped wood, silk thread, wire bristle, 2 sets of prints. Dumbwaiter, rope slicked, wax on sale. Camera 2, dark, yet a card labeled for it in the safe. Old will versus new, everyone's motive rearranged like furniture in a fire. Rowan stood and returned to the study. He took the microSD card, set it in a reader Anders dug from a drawer, and slotted it into Victor's old desktop. A folder opened, cam2_1900 2130.mp4. Rowan clicked. The gallery appeared in grainy black-white. The empty room at 7:03. At 7:11, Lydia slipped in alone, crossed to the easel, lifted the shroud and lowered it, touched nothing else, and left by the main door. 7:42, Graham entered, went to the side table, opened the envelope, read the will, folded it back, and stared at the painting under the shroud as if he could see through cloth. 8:06, Clara came in, stood very still before the painting, and did not touch the shroud, then turned and stared into the dark eye of the northeast camera, this camera, and held the gaze long enough to be certain she'd been seen by someone. 18, Evelyn entered with a glass of water, set it on the side table, looked at the security panel, touched the screw with a fingertip, left. 8:26, Anders came through, carrying a letter opener, steel fox, and a bundle of envelopes. He set them down, adjusted the spotlights, left. 8:31, the feed cut, static, returned at 8:36 with the room empty and the shroud still on. Rowan watched the timestamps tick. He watched who the house had recorded and who it had allowed to be a rumor. He exhaled once, long. The storm answered with its single patient breath, as if to say yes, go on. He closed the file and shut the drawer on the 2 wheels. When he spoke again, it was to the whole house. Part of this story, Rowan said to no one and to everyone, just learned how to speak. He stood, pocketed the card, and headed back to the dining room. Clara, he called, we're not finished. And the storm, pleased with the shape of the night at last, pressed its ear to the glass to listen. Part 6, the circle tightens. The storm's breath had steadied to a long, patient exhale, as if the night itself were listening for the lie that would crack. Rowan Hale stood in the doorway of the dining room with the 2 wheels under his arm, and the microSD card warming his pocket like a cold. Clara Harland sat where he'd left her, hands folded, gaze fixed on the linen that covered the absence at the head of the table. We're not finished, Rowan said. Clara did not look up. We never are. He set a small portable reader on the sideboard and clipped it to the old desktop Anders had coaxed awake. Pixels bloomed, grainy black and white, cam2_1900 2130.mp4. He scrubbed the timeline until the gallery appeared at 7:03, empty, expectant. Watch, Rowan said, and let the room fill with ghosts. At 7:11, Lydia slipped into the gallery, lifted the shroud a hand's width, let it fall, and left. At 7:42, Graham entered, opened the envelope on the side table, read, refolded, and stared at the shrouded canvas as if it could see him seeing. At 8:06, Clara stood alone before the painting and then turned directly to the dark northeast camera, this camera, and held its dead eye with hers for a clean, contemptuous 5 count before leaving. At 8:18, Evelyn walked in holding a glass of water, set it on the side table, examined the security panel, touched the mis-seated screw with one finger, and went. At 8:26, Anders arrived with a stack of envelopes and the steel fox letter opener, adjusted the spotlights, and left. At 8:31, the feed cut to static and returned at 8:36 to an empty room. Rowan paused the frame on Clara's face, those 5 seconds of deliberate staring at a camera she could not know was recording. "Explain that," he said. Clara's mouth did not move for a heartbeat. "He liked to be watched," she said at last. "I wanted him to feel it." "The camera was dark," Rowan said. "Unless you knew it wasn't." "I knew only that Victor was vain," she said. "He would want the camera on when he unveiled us, even if it meant turning it on to see me walk away." Her eyes flicked to the glass. "Are we done performing?" Rowan clicked forward to 8:18. Evelyn put the water on the table. Her finger touched the green-smeared screw. "You put water in the gallery," Rowan said when Evelyn entered, calm as before. "I did," she said. "He'd asked for it earlier. He always forgot to hydrate when he painted. The screw interested me because it wasn't seated. I am a fidgeter with misaligned things." "And the water arrived at dinner," Rowan said. "He drank that, not wine." Evelyn held his gaze. "I would tell you if I had dosed him," she said. "I do not enjoy suspense." "Good," Rowan said, "because I am running out of it." He turned to Graham, froze the frame at 7:42. "You read the new will before dinner." Graham's jaw flexed. "I confirm papers my client intends to wave about," he said. "He was preening. I wanted to know which knife he would use." "And you said nothing?" Rowan's voice was flat. "To whom? His wife? His son?" Graham spread his hands. "It was his estate to mismanage." Miles barked a bitter laugh. "You mean it was your fee to lose?" Rowan let the screen go black and closed the lid. "Here's our picture," he said. By 8:31, someone ensured the gallery's east camera went blind to the night. In the next minutes, the house lost power. In the dark, a blade left a sheath. Victor Harland was stabbed with a bone-handled fox knife taken earlier from the foyer display. His wine was untouched. His water was not. "And what does that mean?" Miles demanded. "That still might be theater," Rowan said. "That chemistry might be the trick." Evelyn didn't blink. "You'll need a lab." "I'll need a dumbwaiter," Rowan said. He led them to the pantry. The small door slid up on a shrug. The rope's slick, polished, worn spot glistened. On the sill, the fleck of red wax he'd seen earlier sat like a drop of dried blood. "If you were moving a glass without being seen," Rowan said, "you would load it here and pull it in the kitchen. If you were moving a knife in a sheath, you could send them the same way. Wax on the sill, rope burn on the line, and the fuse puller an inch off its dust shadow." Graham sniffed. "Conjecture." "Experiment," Rowan said, and turned to Anders. "Kill the dining room breakers. Leave the pantry and hall. We'll recreate your blackout." Anders swallowed and went. The house blinked once, twice. Then the dining room fell into a soft dusk, the pantry a theater of shadows and edges. The wind's low note flooded in to fill the pause. "Sit as you were," Rowan ordered. They took their places grudgingly. Victor's chair at the head covered. Rowan stood behind it. Clara at the foot, framed by the hall archway. Graham at Victor's right. Lydia on the left, nearest the service door. Miles beside Graham. Evelyn across from him, nearest the hall. Anders hovered in the pantry doorway, halfway between worlds. "Lights fail," Rowan said. "You," he pointed to each without looking away. "Say you stayed still?" "You," to Miles, stood and sat. "You," to Lydia, felt someone brush your shoulder. She nodded once. He looked at the angles. In memory of the table, he pictured hands, reach, reflex. In darkness, Rowan said softly. People reached to their dominant side. Graham, to the right, toward Victor's glass and the head of the table. Lydia, to the left, toward the service door. Clara does not reach. Evelyn plants. Miles flails. He let himself hear it again. The scrape of chair, the clink of glass, the deliberate footfalls, the whisper of a blade. And the sound I heard, Rowan said, was not a drawer. It was a blade leaving a sheath. Where is that sheath? No one spoke. The house did, a little, the steady breath of storm and the offbeat tick of a wrong clock. Turn the dining room back on, Rowan said. Anders did. The electricity hiccuped, came steady. Rowan pointed to the pantry dumbwaiter. Down. When he returned, the dining room felt smaller. He set the evidence on the table and two neat plastic ghosts. Someone sent their tools away, he said. Quick disposal. This shaft goes to the basement and then to the boiler room. Hot pipes, dry air. Good for erasing what you don't want found until morning. Graham said, too loud. Anyone could use that. Not anyone, Rowan said. Someone who knew where it went. Someone who thought like staff. Clara's chin tipped up. Say servant if you mean it. I don't, Rowan said. He looked at Anders, then past him. I mean anyone who noticed Anders's work. Which of you ever does? He let the question sit like a mirror. No one liked what they saw. He turned to Evelyn. If I send this vial out with a patrol in the morning, he said, what will the lab find? If it's cyanogenic, they'll tell you, Evelyn said, finally letting the idea into the room. But almond is poor evidence. Not everyone can smell it, and Victor could have masked it with sugar. Pear tart glaze on the fuse puller, Rowan murmured. Glaze on a rope, sugar in a room that didn't serve dessert. Evelyn nodded once. A bitter thing is easier to swallow sweet. Rowan looked at Lydia. You brush the shroud. You live in service corridors. You notice lights, angles, sight lines. I notice everything, she said. That's my only sin. Tonight, Rowan said, it might be. He pulled the silk thread from his pocket and set it beside the sheath. Pale, nearly white, caught earlier on the hidden room door jamb. He held it up to Clara's sleeve. Clara did not move. If you wish to accuse my tailor, she said, do it elegantly. The thread is silk, Rowan said, but not from your gown. Your weave has a different twist. It's from a scarf or a lining. Lydia's tartan is wool. Evelyn doesn't adorn. Anders wears work. That leaves. He let his eyes linger on the velvet pouch he had seen in the safe. He hadn't opened it earlier. He did now. Inside lay a bracelet, thin, pale gold, threaded with a narrow ribbon of white silk woven through its links. Clara's inhale was almost a gasp. Rowan held up the ribbon. The pale thread in his bag was its twin. You lied when you said it was gone, Rowan quoted, and placed the bracelet on the table between them. Clara's hands stayed still. Of course I lied, she said. Victor liked to be lied to. It made him feel alive. You wore it tonight? No, she said too quickly. A beat. Earlier. And you went into the hidden room, Rowan said. You brushed the door. Clara's voice iced over. If I went anywhere tonight, I did not do it slinking through servants' halls. Rowan let her indignation flit and die. You stared into the camera for 5 seconds, Mrs. Harland, he said softly. Some people don't need halls when the stage will do. He turned to the group. Here's the working shape. Poison in the water set before dinner. Knife in the dark to ensure drama and misdirection. Camera blind to shave the record. Dumbwaiter disposal for sheath and vial. Clock's touch to blur memory. Wheels swap to seed motive like salt. Miles swallowed. So pick one of us. I'm not there yet, Rowan said. But I am at this. 2 acts. The first act began before dinner. Water, camera, will. The second act was the blackout. Knife, dumbwaiter, fuse. That means our killer worked twice. Once with planning, once with nerve. He closed the reader, pocketed the card, and looked at each of them in turn. Which of you excels at both? A log cracked in the hall fire like a gunshot. Lydia flinched. Graham stood too fast and sat again because there was nowhere to go. Evelyn's eyes fell to the vial and stayed there, thoughtful. Anders stared at his hands as if they might confess for him. Clara practiced being marble and almost managed it. Miles glared at the bracelet like a man who wanted to break the symbol because he could not break the past. "Coffee," Rowan said finally, voice loosening by a half degree. "For all of us. We will finish tonight." Anders moved to the kitchen. Lydia let out a breath she might have been holding for an hour. Graham reached for the old will and stopped when Rowan's gaze cut to his fingers. From the pantry, Anders called. The stove went out. "Pilot?" Rowan asked. "No," Anders said. His voice sounded wrong, thin. "The gas line is." A hiss bled into the room. Not loud, just enough to change the air. Rowan was moving before the word formed. "Out," he snapped. "Hall, now." They spilled into the corridor as the dining room's candles guttered and flared, the flame behaving as if it had heard its name spoken. In the cold light, Rowan saw Anders at the kitchen threshold, one hand on the wall, the other over his mouth. "Back," Rowan said. "Windows in the hall. Open them." They cracked the tall panes. The storm shoved cold through like a blessing. The hiss dwindled. The candles in the dining room steadied and then blew out in a wind that had not touched them. Rowan waited, counting. The house exhaled. He turned to Anders. "Valve?" he asked. Anders nodded, shame and fear together. Someone loosened the line at the stove. "Tonight," Rowan said. "Now," Anders said. "Just now." Rowan looked at the faces in the cold air. Another method, another attempt. Not theater this time, not legacy. Pressure, panic. Either a killer trying to erase a scene, or someone trying to break the circle and run. He smiled, but it was not kind. "Good," he murmured to the house itself. A third act. He straightened. "We finish this in the gallery," he said. "Bring your masks, if you still have them. They look good in that light." He led them toward the room where their painted doubles waited. Behind them, the dining table stood with a bracelet like a pale snake and two little plastic bags beside it, a sheath and a vial, the night's new vocabulary. The storm pressed its ear to the glass. Somewhere, the wrong clock ticked on, stubborn, like a lie deciding it would rather be true. Part 8. Midnight Traps. The gallery kept their shapes like a held breath. Rowan Hale stood beneath the last unveiled canvas and felt the storm's slow exhale in the bones of the lodge. Morning would bring plows, men in heavier coats, a chain of custody. But night still belonged to stories, and one of those was in the act of murdering again. "We're locking the house down," Rowan said. "But not with prayers?" He gave Anders the keys back in a list. Windows on the leeward side cracked for air. Hall fire low. Pantry door tied back. No burners, no pilot lights, no coffee until I say. Lay towels under the dining room doors. Keep the drafts predictable. And fetch me flour, charcoal, 2 bells, and the old fishing line from the shed. Anders didn't ask why. He moved like a man who wanted the right answer to be heavier than the wrong one. Rowan turned to the others. "Sleeping arrangements," he said. "Pairs, by design. Graham, with Miles in the billiard room. Clara, with Lydia in the red bedroom. Evelyn, you're with Anders on the settee in the main hall. If anyone gets sick, I want you within reach. I'll be in the gallery." Eyes rose like questions. He answered none of them. The house as witness. He made the traps with the same care Victor used to prime canvas. At the dumbwaiter, he sifted a thin line of flour across the sill, drew a crescent on the rope with a charcoal nub, set a bell on a wire hook where a plate would jostle it, and tied a single hair of fishing line taut across the shaft door at knee height. No one would see it in the dark. Everyone would feel it when it snapped. At the service passage panel, he set another hair thin thread, silk this time, cut from the ribbon he'd removed from Clara's bracelet, to lie across the seam lightly as breath. He dusted the threshold with charcoal so light it looked like shadow. A foot that dragged or twisted would write its name. At the fuse panel, he pressed a thumb into flour and laid a petal print over the fuse puller's handle. Fresh prints would show. He dabbed the screw head on the gallery keypad with a kiss of paper ash. Any finger would leave a cleaner circle in the soot. He corrected the regulator clock to his watch and dabbed a grain of wax on the minute hand's hub. If someone tried to move it again, the wax would break. In the dining room, he set 2 identical pitchers of water on the sideboard and a third, sealed with wax, in the pantry on the dumbwaiter's tray. The pitched pair he marked invisibly, one rim dusted with a whisper of charcoal below the lip, one clean. He dampened the linen near Victor's place and pressed flour into it. If anyone leaned there, they'd rise with white on their sleeve. The bracelet he left on the table, exactly where Clara had watched it like a snake. He finished by looping a tiny bell on the inner knob of the hidden room's door. The clapper quieted with a twist of thread that would still sing if tugged fast. Then he walked the house once with the light off, memorizing the sound of it, the storm's breath, the boiler's far heartbeat, the old wood's long complaint, and, beneath, the wrong tick of the clock now made right. Arrangements. The pairings announced, the alibis rearranged themselves like furniture. Graham objected to sharing with Miles and then did not. Miles objected to sharing with Graham and then couldn't stop talking about the draft under the billiard room's door, the scratch on the green felt, the way his father never let him win. Lydia joked about color palettes in the red bedroom and Clara ignored her until she didn't. Evelyn made a pillow for Anders out of her coat and told him how to breathe if the night found him listening too hard to the house. Anders said he didn't sleep much anyway and wasn't sure he wanted to start. Rowan took the gallery. He dragged a chair to face the unveiled canvas and sat like a man attending a play in which he was both audience and suspect. The torch in his painted hand threw light into the room whether he believed in it or not. He pulled a blanket around his shoulders, took out his notebook, and wrote 3 words on the first line. 2 acts, nerves. He added 4 names and left 2 unmarked. Then he waited. The house moves. At 11:37, Clara and Lydia laughed once, thin and brittle, in the red bedroom. The old radiators there liked to sing and had discovered an audience. At 11:49, Miles kicked something in the billiard room and hissed a curse that was 12 letters long. Graham said, "Stop," like a judge would say, and the room went quiet in the specific way men become when they decide not to swing first. At 12:03, Evelyn came into the gallery on stocking feet and looked at rows of faces that had been painted to accuse. "You set traps," she said, not asking. "I set mirrors that move," Rowan said. She looked at him. "You've made yourself bait." "Victor already did," he said, and thought briefly of the room's recording of his silhouette holding a torch. "Wake me if you need a witness," she said, and left. At 12:11, the wind found a new seam and the house sighed. It sounded like relief if you wanted it to. At 12:23, a bell rang very softly somewhere deep, one note, like a spoon against a cup. Rowan didn't move right away. He listened. The note didn't come again. He counted to 60. He stood. In the pantry, the dumbwaiter string was slack, but his flower on the sill bore a single new scuff at the edge, a half-moon where a plate had kissed and gone. The charcoal mark on the rope had been smeared to a thumbprint's blur. The hairline thread he tied across the shaft door was broken and hanging like a spider's line after wind. His bell had rung once when something touched it careful, then not at all when the tray was lifted neat. He lowered the car. At the bottom, the small platform came to a gentle stop. The sealed pitcher he'd placed was gone. In its place, the empty leather sheath, now scrubbed clean of the stain. Whoever had taken it had decided to return it as an alibi too neat to be honest. He smiled without joy. A clever person had made 2 mistakes. They'd taken the wrong pitcher and left him a silence where a clatter should have been. It meant they had practiced, or done this before. Back through the kitchen, he found the gas line's wrench still where Anders had left it, the valve bright against the old pipe where fresh metal had rubbed. No hiss, no new attempt on their lungs. Good, the killer had changed method again. He walked the service corridor. The charcoal dust at the hidden panel's threshold showed a turn mark, someone pivoting on the ball of a foot. The silk thread he tied across the edge was gone entirely, not broken, not dropped. Plucked, patient fingers. He checked the bell on the inner knob, still quieted, still set.